Everyone, happy Friday, January 26th, and welcome to our first edition of Money Matters of the new year. We're so excited to have you join us today or to be viewing this recording. We have a really special Money Matters scheduled for you today, and we're talking about a really important topic that's on a lot of our minds this year and at this time of year, and that is taxes. And so we have a really great program that we work directly with the government on providing free taxes. And so today we are joined by some incredible panelists to talk more with you about this resource and how you can get your taxes filed for free this year. For those who are joining us for the first time or watching a recording for the first time, Money Matters is designed to bring to you free online education on various financial topics that are relevant to you. From credit scores to budgeting to disaster preparedness and more. We're so excited to have you join us today and learn more about this topic and how to get your taxes filed for free. Money Matters is a collaboration partnership with the University of South Florida, Gus A. Stavros Center, and our United Way Suncoast organization. Today, we're going to be joined by two panelists, Margarita Sora and Amanda King. They are going to be joining us to talk a little bit more about how to get your taxes filed for free, what the VITA program is, and how you can take advantage of it for this tax season. Welcome so much to our panel, Margarita and Amanda.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Wonderful. And so I definitely want to give you a chance both now for you to introduce yourselves, tell folks more a little about what you do, and what kind of a glimpse of what you'll be talking about today.
Well, my name is Margarita Sora. I'm the Senior Manager of Financial Stability here at United Way. I've been with United Way now 7 years, so this is my 7th tax season. And I'm so honored for you to have me talk about something that means a lot to me. VITA is a well-needed program that is funded by the IRS. And we are here to answer all your questions, as well as to give you a lot more insights to what VITA is.
Thank you, Margie. And my name's Amanda King. I am a relationship manager with the Internal Revenue Service. I work with an organization called SPEC, that stands for Stakeholder Partnerships, Education, and Communication. And so our goal is really to go into the community, work with partners like United Way Suncoast so that we can help individuals not only understand what their tax obligations are, but then we also want to provide those free access points. So we want a quality tax return. We want it to be accurate. We also want it to be free. And then at the same time, we're working with United Way on what we call FIAB, or financial education and asset building. And so we're trying to get those individuals essentially to be in a better place, because of the fact that they've come into a site, they're able to avoid those tax preparation fees and then use that for something meaningful as they're trying to plan for their future. So I've worked with the IRS in this role for 13 years. It has been a pleasure, really, because it's really a way to touch the communities in a way that's meaningful, to give them a way to get connected to those tax returns and really have an understanding, because we see a lot of times in the program that individuals have gone other places and they come in with returns that are not accurate, that they have paid hundreds of dollars for. And then we're able to sort of, fix and then put them in a better position for the future. So it's nice to be able to present today.
Awesome. Thank you both so much for joining us. For those who are hopping on now, this is really an opportunity to learn more about, some free options that are available to you this tax season. We have some questions that we have prepared for our panel today, but we want to make sure that we're involving our audience as well. So if you have any specific questions for Margarita or Amanda that you'd like to have answered today about taxes, VITA, things that you might find necessary to learn about this tax season, please use the Q&A feature in the webinar, and we'll be sure to ask that to our incredible panel today. You'll also be prompted after leaving our Money Matters webinar today to take a very brief survey just to collect your basic information on how you're satisfied with the Money Matters webinar today, what we can do to improve it, and some other small and anonymous things to learn about with your experience today with Money Matters. You'll also be directed to RSVP for upcoming Money Matters webinars, which we'll talk about at the end of the episode today. So really just to kick it off, I know we've done some acronym dropping already. Some people who might not have heard about this before might be wondering, what is VITA? What does it stand for? So can y'all talk more about what VITA is and how it provides assistance to individuals and families during tax season?
And Margie, would you like me to take just from the beginning. So VITA stands for the Volunteer Income Tax Assistance Program. We also partner with the organization AARP to make sure that we're providing taxes to individuals throughout the nation, really. But we're also a part of something that you may have referred to or heard of referred to before as TCE, so Tax Counseling for the Elderly. So when you look at those programs, it's really about finding a volunteer base, because this is a program that has existed for over 50 years. It is completely volunteer led, meaning, at its peak, I will say before COVID, we had, 88,000 volunteers that are running this program nationwide. Each one of those volunteers has gone through the IRS certifications, and there are different levels of certifications depending on the type of returns that you're processing at the sites. And so this is an opportunity for individuals in the community to gain experience, because you can learn how to do taxes if you've never done it before. You're also able to go through and share that information with friends and families so that they have, that access point as well. It's a resume booster. It's a way to get your taxes done in a safe, environment where the IRS, provides oversight for the program. So we are absolutely focused on accuracy and the quality of the tax returns. And, I will just say this off the bat, it's always interesting because the IRS has chosen the approach that we have, because we are very aware that if the IRS were to go out into the communities and establish the sites themselves, it probably wouldn't land the same way as it does when you have trusted community partners that are doing the program for us. And so for that reason, we've chose those leveraged models so that we can work with community partners that have individuals, like I said, that know and trust them. And then they're able to market the program so that it's successful ultimately. And that is where United Way Suncoast comes in and does a fantastic job of working with us and marketing the program.
Thank you, Amanda. Margarita, do you have anything you'd like to add to that?
I think she said everything I was going to say. So I think
Amanda is good at her job. She has that elevator pitch down. So,
I do want to just, before we begin, today is actually a national, I shouldn't say holiday, but it's a national day. Today is EITC Awareness Day. EITC is Earned Income Tax Credit Awareness Day. So today is a day that VITA nationwide focuses on bringing awareness into the community for this fantastic credit. This is a credit that our taxpayers are entitled to, and we want to make sure that they get those credits that they deserve. We have the Earned Income Tax Credit, the Child Tax Credit. So going to a VITA site, we do make sure that these credits are given to our community members. I do want to share something that I would like to just give you guys awareness that last year, as of December of 2023, we had 23 million people. We're talking about families and workers that received the Earned Income Tax Credit, and that equated to $57 billion. So that's a large amount of money. So we want to make sure that those who come to our VITA site, that they feel comfortable enough that they will be receiving what is entitled to them. And that's definitely the EITC and the child tax credit.
That's incredible. And honestly, any day where we can celebrate $57 billion being saved by these families sounds like a holiday to me. So definitely something to celebrate and to bring attention to. So I know y'all talked a little about VITA and the services it can provide. I have a question, and then a question I'd like to tie in from the audience on eligibility, because no two taxpayers are the same. So can you please go into more details on who is exactly eligible to get their taxes filed for free at a VITA site? And then the question that we have from the audience is, how complicated of a return can VITA provide? For example, will they be able to help people who have side gigs with a 1099 in addition to the regular job?
And Margie, I guess I can jump in when it comes to what we call scope. So there are two different guidelines that we use for individuals that are coming into the VITA site specifically. So when you're looking at scope, what returns can we prepare? When you're looking at individuals that are self-employed, absolutely, we can do those returns. We do have limitations, just say that. So the easiest thing to do is actually seek the guidance of the individuals at the VITA site, because the worst thing that could possibly happen is for a taxpayer to think, I don't qualify, my return is too complicated, and then not go out to a site. We do have signage and we have information that United Way has available that can sort of give guidelines onto whether or not you can get those returns done. But I will stress that when you look online, when you see certain advertising that will say, yes, we'll do a free tax return for you, what they're speaking about is a very simple, very streamlined tax return. The free at a VITA site is not that. We're dealing with individuals who have capital gains, that have small businesses, that have, child tax credit, earned income tax credit, that are itemizing on their returns. I think I actually spoke to somebody yesterday that was having an issue with an online software provider, that the version was free until they got up to a certain form, and then it sort of triggered them over, to the paid version. I won't speak directly to the form, but that form with our program is free. So we're dealing with individuals that have healthcare through the marketplace, that have, families that are looking at difficult dependency issues. So what you would normally consider a simple return is not the same way that we look at it. And so there is an extensive scope chart that we use. So we assess every single individual taxpayer that comes in. And so we will look, it's like you said, Matthew, each situation is a little bit different. So we look at those tax returns individually to decide, can we move forward with this? And if we cannot move forward, we will refer them out. And Margie can speak to program requirements that we have.
Well, thank you, Amanda. So with United Way Suncoast VITA program, we do have a threshold amount of $79,000 or below per household. So if you qualify for that, you definitely could get your services done at a VITA site. We also have a different option where anyone who wants to do their taxes on their own, they could also do it using our facilitated self-assistance program, where they could do their own returns at the comfort of their own home. And that too is at $79,000 or below per household.
Perfect. Thank you. And that's such an important, tool for folks, because, if you are, for so many families in the Suncoast region are working paycheck to paycheck. And so the last thing you need is to dip into those refunds to go and pay to get your taxes filed. So that's great that this is, this has such a large a threshold of folks that can be eligible for this. And Margie, didn't we wasn't that income threshold increased this year from the previous year too? So more folks might be eligible.
Correct. Every year we try to increase it a little bit, just because the cost of living is going up. So we want to make sure that we are able to help those in need. 79,000 may seem a lot if you are a single individual with no dependents, but imagine a married couple with 3 kids and their household is 79,000. You're talking about they're really trying to stretch that money to make ends meet.
Perfect. We just have I have a quick follow-up question from the audience on there. Where in the W-2 can someone look for the income section to learn if they qualify for VITA? Can you, I know it's in the top of your head. I'm assuming you don't have a W-2 right in front of you, but can that W-2 can folks look to see if they might be eligible?
I'm pulling one up right now. I believe it's box 2, but I don't want to speak until I pull it up. Speak a little. Yes. No, it's actually box 1. So if you're looking at your W-2, the wages, tips, and other compensation, that's going to be in box 1. But what I will stress, and then Margie spoke about it, if you have questions about, is my income a little bit too high? Is that it's always safer to come into a location or contact us so that we can sort of help you with that. Because if a return is a tad over that $79,000 limit, but yet it still falls within the scope of what we can prepare, United Way is within their rights to sort of make exceptions in those cases. So, you don't want to necessarily say, oh, I'm $79,001, that's it, I don't qualify, and so I can't go. So just be careful about that.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up, Amanda, because we don't want people to think that we do have a hard stop at 79,000. Things vary, so we want to make sure that we do not turn away our clients who are eligible. I do want to say, however, if they do use the online version, the FSA, which is a facilitated self-assistance, that does have a hard stop at 79,000.
Perfect. And another follow-up question, because this is something that's so important for folks to kind of figure out, is this something that they might be able to take advantage of? Just to clarify, VITA is tax preparation for individuals, correct? Not businesses, not other organizations. And so if someone has an LLC that they need to get their taxes filed for, or a nonprofit, they would have to go to another site or another source, correct?
Correct. It is only individual income tax returns. And like we were saying before, if individuals have a small business that falls on a Schedule C, which then translates to that regular 1040, we do those, but we do not do the others. You're correct.
Okay, perfect. Well, because one of the questions was somebody has a nonprofit that has a revenue of 10,000 and no paid employees. Their husband earns over 70, so they were a little concerned about if they can receive services. So hopefully this provided some insight on that question. And while we're on the topic of eligibility, let's say that I want to go to a VITA site. I am within that income threshold. What do I need to make sure that when I get to that VITA site, they don't turn me back because I don't have the proper documents? Because for folks who might not know me, I love volunteering for VITA, and United Way, Suncoast, and IRS takes verification very seriously. So I want to make sure that we don't glide over this topic. So can y'all talk more about how do people maximize their potential being seen that day and not having to go home to get any kind of documents?
That's a great question, Matthew. So when someone is visiting one of our VITA sites, it is very crucial, very important that they bring their federal government issued photo ID. That includes their driver's license, their state ID, passport, military card. We want to make sure we could verify the identity for both taxpayers on the return. For all members on the return, we're talking about the taxpayers as well as their dependents. We do need original Social Security cards. We do not accept copies. We do not accept people saying, well, I know it in the head, I know it by memory. We have to physically see the cards. It's very, very important, especially for those who have dependents. Because we have households or dependents with multiple households, we want to make sure that the individual receiving the credits and claimed as dependents are entitled to do so. Florida does have high theft rates, so we really do not want to contribute to that percentage. So please make sure that those two pieces of ID are with you when you go to a site. We also encourage that you have all your supporting documents on hand. If you have multiple employers, please make sure you have all the W-2s. Don't come to our site missing one because we cannot complete your return. And we don't want to jeopardize that earned income tax credit, because not having all your documents in order could definitely affect that one way or the other. So please make sure you have all your supporting documents, your ID, and your Social Security card. And best thing to do is make an appointment through our website.
Perfect. Thank you, Marita. And we have a couple questions from the audience that I'm going to tie in together. The first one is, for folks who want to self-prepare, what is the link or website that they should go to? And then the second question is, so you mentioned, going on the website and scheduling an appointment. Are there any walk-in opportunities, or I know that there's a priority of, scheduling appointments, so, you have a session available, but do you have any walk-in possibilities that exist at the VITA sites?
So all our information will be found on our website, which is www.uwsvita.org. Stands for United Way Suncoast VITA.org. When you go visit that site, you'll scroll down and there is a section that says, do you want to prepare your own return? That's where you would find the link to do your own taxes. You would click on the link, submit your name, an email, and then usually it's instantly where you would get a reply with the link. We do have online support. So if you choose to do your own returns and you come across a section that you need a little bit more guidance on, we do have virtual volunteers who can assist you with that. Basically, there's a Q&A. You want to check out the Q&A first to make sure that question hasn't been already asked. If you do not find your questions there, then you would submit a questionnaire and they will be sent to our virtual volunteers. Our virtual volunteers are not live. You know, it's not where you would get an instant response, but you will get a response within 24 to 48 hours. Right now, we have a very small team, but we are still working to increase that to get a quicker response for you. But you'll be able to answer ask any questions and you'll get a response. Depending on the complexity of your question, you may get a follow-up by email, or they might request to make a phone call and continue a conversation with you. So we definitely want to make sure that you are assisted if you're doing your own returns on your own. If you want to go to one of our sites, majority of our sites are by appointment only. When you go to that same website, www.uwsvita.org, there you could also see the list of our VITA sites, and they're broken down by county, so it makes it a lot easier for you. So when you click into your county, you select the site you want, and there it will tell you if it's strictly appointment or if they take walk-ins. But we do stress that walk-in is based upon availability. So we just want to make sure that you understand that if the site is busy where everyone showed up for their appointments and they're booked solid, they might not be able to see you. So we do encourage to make an appointment. That way you're seeing a lot faster, as well as your wait time would be less.
Perfect. And we had some you had mentioned the website. Can you mention it again? So because some folks are asking for a repeat so they can type it into the browsers and stuff.
It's www.uwsvita.org. And that stands for United Way Suncoast VITA.org. If you want to call, also, we also have, thank you. We also have a phone number if you want to make an appointment. And the phone number is going to be just as easy because it is 833 UWS VITA. And that is 833-897-8482. So if you're interested in making a call, you could do that as well and schedule an appointment. I do have a disclaimer though. When our sites first open, everyone's calling, so the wait could be as long as an hour to 2 hours. So I do encourage everyone to schedule the appointments online. Very easy. All you're doing is selecting a site, pick the date, pick the time, and all you're putting is your name, phone number, and email. That's it. You get a confirmation email, and the email will also have all the required documents so you don't forget. If you need to change or cancel or reschedule your appointment, you could do so with that confirmation email. So if you do it that way, keep that email because that's the only email that you will receive giving you that option to do so.
Perfect. It sounds like there's a lot of ways to get in touch. And I know that we have our chat locked right now. So Erin, can you, when you have a chance, can you unlock the chat so we can post these links so that everyone can see them? Because I'm also just was made aware that the survey has not been connected with this as well. So if you are, before you leave today, please click on that link. Also click on the US VITA link. So you can schedule an appointment and so you can complete the your satisfaction survey. Margie, thank you for providing that clarification for our folks listening on how to contact VITA and schedule an appointment. So y'all have mentioned some tax credits that folks have been available. Margie, you mentioned the ITC, child tax credit. What are these? Can y'all describe what these credits and deductions are for folks who might not have filed for them or are aware that these exist? And how are there any ways that folks can make sure that they are able to take advantage of them? So I know Margarita, you mentioned make sure bring you all your W-2s in. So can you all provide some more high level information on what the differences between these are and what are the most common ones that our VITA volunteers see at the tax sites?
And Margie, I can touch on, I guess, individuals making sure that they're not missing out on any of these credits because the IRS has created an intake interview process for all of our sites. And so when you go to the site as a taxpayer, there will be an intake sheet that you will be required to fill out. And it's going to ask you various questions, that will directly then relate back to those credits that you could have. It will ask you, about dependents. It will ask you if you had education expenses, because those would be linked to potential education credits that we could see on a tax return. When you're looking at the earned income tax credit, like we were speaking about before, the child tax credit, the child and dependent care credit, a lot of these credits that we see quite often at our sites are linked to those individuals that have families or then are, paying to increase their skills, that are in college, that are, taking, classes to increase their knowledge at work. So when we're looking at all these credits, it's really just a matter of, like you said in the beginning, looking at those individual situations and seeing what we can do to, I know we said we're going to qualify these individuals, but also we're trying to make sure that we do not qualify you if you should not be receiving those credits. When you look at the earned income tax credit as an example, this could be a credit that's giving thousands of dollars back to a family, depending on, the filing status that you have, depending on your family size, depending on your income. Those credits can get quite large. And so what we want to make sure is that we are not placing any of the taxpayers coming into our sites in a position where they have been incorrectly qualified for one of these credits, because then essentially what happens is they would be receiving letters from the IRS stating, you had claimed this credit, it was not accurate, we need additional information. And then we're setting them up for failure, essentially, because we don't want them at that point. I received my refund, I've already used it, and now you're telling me that I have to pay it back. So we work very carefully with our taxpayers to make sure that we qualify them correctly for these. And that's where, when you're looking at what you have to have at the site, when you're looking at how we qualify them, the IRS has a very clear and established process. There's a publication that all of us use as we're going through and we're preparing returns, because we don't want anyone guessing. We want them using the information that they learned through the intake interview. They're working with the forms that the taxpayer brought in and all of their responses to that intake sheet to make sure that we have qualified them correctly for any and all of the credits that they should be receiving on that tax return. I can just speak from my previous experience, and it is heartbreaking, when you have individuals come in and they may say, well, I've gone to XYZ preparer in the past and they got me way more money than you did. And when you start to really ask questions about, well, okay, well, how did that happen? What is it that you were entitled to that you didn't get when you came to our site, or when you went to a different location? And come to find out, they're things that aren't technically eligible to deduct. They may be telling them that they're able to deduct mileage with a business that technically is commuting mileage. So we have to be very careful to screen the taxpayers correctly so that that doesn't happen. And I will let Margie speak about what we generally see, because those are the big ones. What we try not to do is to overwhelm taxpayers with, I guess you would say, the tax law behind it. We can always reach out. So I will say this, if anybody on this call is interested about the specifics of those credits, we can absolutely get you the information. From the IRS stance, what we prefer is that we give you the actual pubs that would be associated with those, so that we're not misspeaking and so that you understand tax law is complicated. It's changing constantly. If you see in the news, you see that even now that, they may be potentially talking about changes in the middle of the filing season, which Margie and myself have seen before, and so when that happens, we adapt, we get the taxpayers back in if we need to make sure that the returns are corrected, because those credits can be life-changing for the people that are coming in.
Yeah, I had to second everything that Amanda said. My background, I came from a low-income taxpayer clinic before I started with United Way doing the VITA program. And the LITCs for short, they collaborate really well with VITA. So when I was working there, we saw on a regular basis individuals that were taking advantage of, especially if English is not their first language. So you have individuals that would come to us because what an LITC is, they're actually attorneys assisting our taxpayers with pro bono service. So the people would come with letters from the IRS that could be like this thick, and there was one in particular that came in, and he was a truck driver. And as a truck driver, if you do things the right way, there's a lot of deductions that are involved. And the person who did his return literally took every possible opportunity and put it on his return. They added dependents that he didn't have. They added expenses that he didn't have. And of course, his return was red flagged at the IRS. So he comes, he gets his documents, doesn't speak the language, and was so worried because, in his mind, oh my God, am I going to jail? Am I going to get arrested for all this? And the first question we ask him, oh, is this your child? No. And we're like, okay, this is going to be a long day because we already started with inaccurate information and we were just on page 1. So with VITA, this is stuff that when people come to our site, we not only do these returns, our taxpayers are encouraged to communicate and engage with the taxpayers. We don't expect them to teach tax law to our clientele, but let them know what an AGI, what is an adjusted gross income, and where to find it on the return. Show them where their refund is, because that's another thing that we see at our site. We have individuals that come to our site, and as we are looking at their prior year return, we might make a comment, oh, you received X amount last year. And their response is, that's not accurate. I received a different amount. And then you find out later on that that difference is what was charged for that tax return. And some organization, I'm not naming any, but I can tell you it's not VITA. We don't put anybody's bank information on that return except for the taxpayers. So we don't put ours, we don't have our taxpayers do that. The money goes directly to our clients. That way they get the full amount. And it's sad to see that more than we would like to, but we see that a lot from taxpayers that come looking for us to amend returns, correct the returns, or you'd start from scratch with tax returns that are going to be done honestly and accurately.
I think that's so important. And y'all, there was a mention on impact that these credits can have on families. And there's a story that we circulate internally at United Way on a woman who had gone to one of our VITA sites. I'm not sure which year was that, maybe last year. And she hadn't had filed her taxes in a while. So she was a little worried that she would come in and find out that she owes a lot of money. And as a mother, that was an expense that she was very worried about, and the ability to take care of her children. When she at that VITA site, she found out that she was able to take advantage of multiple years of tax credits that were available as a mother, and she found out that she was owed a refund of over $17,000. And that just shows the impact that these tax credits can have on your financial stability, your financial wellness, and why you should be able to keep every penny that you get in those refunds and not send it to, have it as an administrative processing fee. And so I think it's important that we talk about the credits, and something that I didn't have as a prepared question, but is important for folks that are joining us or listening in, is how VITA works. Because we talk about the ethics of VITA and how the preparations and training that our volunteers go through. So I would love for y'all to talk a little about how volunteers are prepared. You don't just point at someone on the street and say, hey, come in here and prepare some taxes. What do people go through to be prepared to complete taxes? And then if you can also talk about what the experience is for the taxpayer. So, I go in, let's say I'm that taxpayer that I'm eligible, bring my documents. What does that process look like for me? And how do we make sure that, every taxpayer is treated with respect, and, that their information is kept safe and secure and ethically handled during their visit?
I can speak about things from the training standpoint that the IRS takes, is that, we have every single individual that comes in contact with a taxpayer, even if they are just greeting them as they walk through the door. Those individuals all the way through into the quality, what we call quality reviewers, they all have to be certified. Whether that's just the standards of conduct, which is what the base level certification is, all the way through intake, interview, quality review process. And then we have multiple levels of tax law certification that individuals can get. So there's basic, advanced, international, Puerto Rico 1 and 2, foreign student certification, military certification. So in order to do specific tax returns, you have to be certified in that level of tax law to assist that taxpayer that's sitting in front of you. And that's what we do the intake interview process for, is to screen the returns, make sure that we have the right person that's certified and capable of answering those tax law questions. If we get to a point where a return is out of scope, it stops completely. So the expectation from the IRS is that if it's an out of scope issue, we cannot give any tax law guidance at all. So we then have to refer them out. So we're very careful about the process because we want the program to focus on what we know we're good at. And those returns are the ones that we've been speaking about, the ones that have the earned income tax credit, child tax credit, those small businesses that are within the scope of our program that don't have employees, that do not have a loss. So we really try to perfect it that way so that we can protect not only the taxpayers, but also the volunteers, because we don't want them overwhelmed. So they're going through different types of training processes in order to get there. So for anybody that's interested in volunteering, you do not have to have extensive tax law knowledge or really any tax law knowledge to become a part of the program, because there are in person for brand new volunteers, virtual sessions that you can attend if you're a returning volunteer, sessions that you will attend both with United Way and the individual from the IRS to prepare you to be a volunteer. So it's not just here, take a test and good luck. It is, we're going to do everything that we can to get you to a level of comfort before you get out to that site, so that that then translates to the tax return that you're going to be preparing. For the taxpayer itself, we want that person to have a good experience, but we also want them to realize the process that we have at the site is that you come in, you sit down for a traditional in-person site, you sit down and do a thorough intake interview. You're going to have one individual prepare that return from start to finish, looking at everything. You're then going to have a second brand new individual look at everything on the return again from start to finish. And what that does is, again, protects the taxpayer, but also protects our volunteers. Because if you are a new volunteer that's coming in, we do not expect you, like Margie said, to memorize tax law. I think that would be counterproductive, but what we do teach them how to do is research. We want them to understand, when you encounter these somewhat complicated situations, what do you do? And that's where the understanding comes from the taxpayer side as well, because I think everybody needs to be comfortable with the fact that it's okay to say, I don't know. I'm not sure right now, but we're going to find the answer for you. Because I think that's the dangerous area that you get into when somebody, wants to be overconfident and they don't want to look bad in front of somebody, so they guess or they just assume that they're doing the correct thing. We train our volunteers to do the exact opposite. To always verify and trust the process that we have in place.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Amanda. Margarita, is there anything you wanted to add to that? Or I think Amanda was able to cover a bunch of it. Perfect. So we have a couple of questions from the audience. One that I believe I can answer. The question is there a set price that the tax preparers are allowed to charge you for preparing your taxes? The answer is $0. You should never be prompted by your preparer to tip, pay a fee. It is $0. And there are very strict ethical guidelines that preparers, greeters, anyone that's volunteering at a tax site must adhere to, or the IRS will come down and they will yell at us. And so I don't know if there's anything you want to, if either of you want to elaborate on the ethics or things that people should be aware of, or if you think that encompasses it all.
I think you did a great job. We know that you studied and passed the test.
I did. I passed my ethics training, so I'm glad that I answered that question correctly. And definitely, if you ever are at a tax site, at a VITA site, and you are prompted to pay or you are encouraged to leave a tip, please go to that site coordinator immediately, because that person should not be participating as a VITA volunteer if they are soliciting payment. And so the other question that I don't have the best answer to, if a return is determined to be outside the scope at a VITA site, are they sent to any other tax return place, or is essentially, you'll have to find a place on your own? Is there any recommendations on that?
The wording, the specific wording that they're supposed to use at the sites is that you have to seek the assistance of a professional tax preparer. Under no circumstances will we give a recommendation, because if we gave a certain name and something bad happens, that's going to come directly back on us. So unfortunately, for those out of scope returns that are outside of what we're capable of preparing, they will have to go out on their own and find a tax preparer. There are ways that you can go onto the IRS website. So I will say this, if you're looking for preparers, there is guidance on the IRS website that will assist you in making sure that you're selecting a good and reputable preparer. So I would definitely suggest that. Matthew, I can get that resource and provide it to you so that you can then pass that on.
Definitely. Thank you, Amanda. And for those who are interested in learning more about that, a recording of this webinar will post on our YouTube channel, and we'll include that in the description, so it's easy to click on. So Amanda, thank you for that clarification, and for the person for asking that question. That is a good reminder that if you do have any questions, we have a couple minutes left for questions. So if you have anything that's burning in your brain right now, please leave that in the Q&A feature, and hopefully we'll get a chance to get to it. And also, before you leave today, make sure that you complete that satisfaction survey that's linked in the chat. That's the best way for us to learn how to make the best Money Matter webinars possible for you throughout this year. So with that said, we do have a couple minutes left and a few more questions. Margarita, you had mentioned before about making sure you have all of your W-2s ready with you when you go to a tax site. For those people who have multiple jobs or they have fluctuating incomes that vary, is there any additional advice that you would have for making sure that these folks are able to have accurate and thorough tax filings prepared?
Can I speak to the multiple jobs piece just for a moment? Because I think that the other thing that goes hand in hand with that, and what we often see at our sites, is that individuals that have multiple jobs are at a higher risk of being under withheld than individuals that just have one position all year. And so, the other thing that we do is, unfortunately, when we get to the end of the tax return and we have that opportunity to either be there as they're told that they're getting a refund that they weren't expecting and are extremely happy about, or on the opposite side, that they have a balance due that they were not prepared for. What do you do when that happens? These individuals that have multiple jobs, and I've seen this personally when individuals are coming in and they will say, I tried to file online. The IRS is telling me that I owe money, but I know that I don't owe anything. It's not possible. And so when we start to dig a little bit further and try to ask them, well, how is it that you know that you don't owe? And they'll say, well, my employer told me that I had enough withheld. If you have multiple jobs, you have to take all of that into consideration. The IRS does have resources online. It's called the Withholding Estimator. It's very, very important for everybody, really, to take a look at that resource. You would need to have your pay stub information, so that you can go into it, and you can use it at any point of the year to go in and sort of say, this is a snapshot of where I am right now. And it's able to tell you, are you over withheld? Are you under withheld? What will your tax return look like if everything stayed the same as of right now? And I think that's a very powerful tool that taxpayers can use to be in charge of their tax return as they're going through, because then you don't have that surprise element, which I think can be very unfortunate, if you're not expecting the news. So in terms of how to prepare, of course, you have to have all of your documentation with you, because in order for us to qualify you, and I'll just say the earned income tax credit as a huge example, that can fluctuate wildly when it comes to income. So if you had 3 jobs last year, but yet you only brought in 2 W-2s, it may qualify you for a credit amount that is larger than you're entitled to. So then when you bring that third document into the situation, if you forgot about it, if you filed without taking it into consideration, it could potentially put you in a position where you owe money back to the IRS. So you have to look at everything that you've done for the year, even if it's not reported on a tax form, because cash income, unless it's otherwise, determined that it's not taxable, it has to go on a tax return as well. So just making sure that you have a full picture, and that you're very open, when you're having the interview, because like I said, it can impact all of those credits. So you want to make sure that you don't have any of those surprises.
Thank you, Amanda. And I just want to actually loop around for a quick sec while we have a chance. Earlier, you had mentioned changes to this, possible changes that are happening while we speak right now in Congress. And people might have seen on the news some possible changes to tax law. Is there any reason that folks should delay going to a VITA site, if because of they might see that there might be tax credits coming out? Or how do you think people should be paying attention right now to any possible changes, or should they go online and schedule an appointment for as soon as possible?
What I will say about tax law changes, and this has been our stance from the beginning, is that until it's official, it's not official. So there is a lot of information that can float around about things that could potentially happen. I can't really advise somebody what the best thing to do for their individual return is. We see it happen at the sites where the individuals that come in the beginning, they pretty much know that they're getting a refund, they're ready for it, and they don't want it to wait. We've had changes mid-filing season before, and when that happens, it's just important that you pay attention to say, do I have to go back to a VITA site? Now, when those specific changes have happened, there have been ways for our VITA sites to go back in and say, okay, how do we take a look at these returns, figure out how to identify the ones that should be impacted, and we have to call those taxpayers back in. So it happens from both sides. But of course, if you're paying attention to any specific changes that that actually come through, you would then know to go back and sort of, hey, does this affect my tax return? Can we get it amended? That's the process of changing what you've already filed. We do have a lot of individuals that choose to wait later in the filing season for those reasons. When you look at earned income tax credit and other credits like that, they don't release those tax refunds until the middle of February. And they do that for a reason. We're trying to make sure that people have all of the documentation that they need to file those returns with those credits, because they are so dependent on income. And so there's not really a need to go out and rush, because even if you filed and the filing season opens on January 29th, it's about to happen. Even if you filed January 29th and it was accepted, you're still not going to receive those refunds that have earned income tax credit until the IRS says, okay, yes, we're going to release these refunds. So there's not really a need to rush. It's more make sure that it's accurate, make sure that you're giving a complete picture of everything that you did for that year, so that you don't have any unfortunate surprises. And then we will handle any specific changes that happen mid-filing season as they come. Our sites don't like it, but we're well equipped to handle them.
Perfect. Thank you for clarifying that. We do have one final question from the audience before we wrap up the Q&A. And this is regard to outside of VITA services. So I can definitely answer this, and y'all can add some input if you'd like, on if other tax preparers, non-VITA, are allowed to charge you for getting your taxes filed. The answer is yes. Taxes, if you go online and, go to a tax preparation website, they can charge fees. If you go to another accountant to get your taxes filed, they are allowed to charge you fees. Within VITA itself, that is not permitted. And once again, really want to emphasize that you should never be prompted to pay or tip or offer kind of anything in a substitute for, in exchange for getting your taxes filed. So, and that's really the purpose of VITA in the first place, is to offer a fee-free tax preparation experience. I think I covered that, but if y'all have you want to add on that, please feel free to chime in. But really, since we have just a couple minutes left, I want to spend these moments on if either of you have final thoughts, suggestions, recommendations. I believe that there might be some incredible, awesome events coming up, Margarita, if you want to talk about. And so I'll kick it off to both of you for concluding thoughts.
Well, thank you, Matthew. So I do want to talk about 3 events that are coming up in the VITA program. 2 of them are what we call Taxathon. Taxathon is basically what it sounds, a marathon of taxes. We do have two of them. They're going to be back to back. One is going to be in the Sarasota Boys and Girls Club on Saturday, February 10th, and that's going to be from 9 to 4. And the nice thing about these tax-a-thons, what makes them a little bit different than just visiting our regular site, is they are open for a much longer duration. And we have all our partners that are participating, providing additional services. We have financial coaches, we have financial institutes, we have healthcare, we have education, we have the LITCs, the low income taxpayer, and we have the IRS, taxpayers advocate services. All these great businesses come to this great event and provide services for taxpayers for free. We also have another one the following Saturday, which is at the Hillsborough Community College, Dale Mayberry campus. And that one's a 12-hour event. And for both of the taxathons, highly, highly recommended to make an appointment because it is, this is our 6th year. Every year, it just continues to grow. So we definitely want to make sure that we see everyone, especially if you're taking a long way to get there, you know, because these are only in 2 specific counties. We have a lot of people that are coming from different counties. Just please make sure you have all your documents, like we mentioned in the past, and making sure you have your proper identification. We also have another event on March 30th in DeSoto, which is Taxpayer Action Day. And Amanda, would you like to speak a little bit about that?
Sure. So that event is focused mainly on taxpayers in the rural area of Arcadia. So what we're trying to do is make sure that individuals that are outside of what you would call the normal commuting, distance with an IRS office, how can we get assistance to them as well? Because there's a lot of questions that taxpayers have. The IRS offers events where they will oftentimes open up on Saturdays where you don't have to have an appointment to come in. But if it's a burden for you to get there, if it's an issue with childcare, being able to take off work, whatever the case is, we want to bring those services to the communities that need it. And that really has been our attempt. This is going to be the 2nd year that we're going to hold that event in Arcadia. And I think it's just a wonderful way to really tell them we do care. We care about the fact that you have issues that need to be addressed, even if you can't make it physically to an IRS office or don't have the availability to be able to call in. And if you've ever tried to call into the IRS during tax season, you know that it can be a very lengthy wait time if they have somebody available to answer your call. So we're just trying to get rid of those barriers because that's what the program is about. We want everybody to have access to those free services and also to the assistance that comes from individuals at the Taxpayer Advocate and through the LITCs as well. So just another great way for us to connect to the community.
Perfect. Well, thank you both so much for joining us today. Even though I volunteer at VITA every year, I always learn something new. So once again, thank you both for joining us. And the moral of the story for folks who are joining us today as well is you shouldn't pay a penny to get your taxes filed for free this year. You can visit uwsvita.org to get your taxes filed for free at a VITA site, or you can do it yourself online. And as a reminder, before you click out of this meeting today, make sure you visit the chat to click on the survey link to complete. It's about 5 questions long, very quick. We really appreciate any feedback you can provide. And then if you are interested in reviewing any of the content we discussed today, or perhaps sharing this with others in your networks, a recording of this will be available on United Way Suncoast YouTube channel, I believe by the end of today. So you can share it out starting next week and let other folks know about all the opportunities coming up this tax season. And if you really enjoy the Money Matter experience today, our next Money Matters will be on Monday, March 11th at 12 p.m. And we'll be talking about budgeting for utilities, because I'm sure I'm preaching to the choir that AC can be expensive during the Florida summers. So we'll be bringing experts on to talk about how to make your utilities as efficient as possible and make sure you're saving as much as possible during the summer heat. So once again, Amanda, Margarita, thank you both for joining us. Thank you everyone for joining us today, listening in either in person or on YouTube. And I hope you all have a great rest of your day.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Matthew.